US President Donald Trump has said Washington is in active and positive discussions with both Russia and Ukraine. The United States has confirmed reaching separate agreements with the two countries to ensure safe navigation in the Black Sea and to ban strikes on energy infrastructure. As part of a deal, Washington has agreed to push for the easing of some sanctions on Moscow, marking a notable step toward aligning with Russia's position. These agreements represent the first formal commitments between the warring sides since President Trump's return to office.
It's a situation we should have never had to even think about, should have never happened. And on the Middle East...
The United States has said it is still reviewing the agreements reached with both Ukraine and Russia earlier this week. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio clarified the deals were agreements in principle, noting that Washington is now evaluating the conditions laid out by Moscow before deciding on the next steps. Under the proposed deal, both Ukraine and Russia agreed to pause attacks at sea and on energy infrastructure. In return, the US signaled a willingness to push for the easing of some sanctions on Russia. However, shortly after the US announcement, the Kremlin responded, saying the agreement concerning the Black Sea would not take effect unless some Russian banks are reconnected to the international financial system.
So we can more fully understand what the Russian position is or what their ask is in exchange. And then we'll present that to the president, who will ultimately make a decision about.
French President Emmanuel Macron has announced that France will provide an additional €2 billion in military aid to Ukraine. Speaking alongside Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky in Paris, Macron said the new package includes anti-tank and surface-to-air missiles, armored vehicles, drones, and additional Mirage fighter jets. He also accused Russia of rewriting the terms of recent limited ceasefire agreements. The announcement comes ahead of a summit involving around 30 world leaders aimed at strengthening support for Ukraine, reviewing ceasefires, and discussing Europe's long-term role in supporting Ukraine.
Ou encore des missiles de défense solaire Mistral. Pour tenir sur le front, les armées ukrainiennes recevront également des blindés VAM, des chars AMX-10RC, mais également de nombreuses munitions, dont certaines téléopérées ou des drones. Et nous avons aussi avancé sur les coopérations en matière satellitaire ou d'intelligence.
Emmanuel Macron. Now, for his part, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has expressed hopes that the United States can exert enough pressure on Russia to secure an unconditional ceasefire. His remarks came after Moscow proposed conditions for halting strikes in the Black Sea under a deal brokered by Washington. Speaking at a joint press conference with French President Emmanuel Macron in Paris, Zelensky stressed that sanctions on Russia should not only remain in place, but be strengthened. Kyiv had earlier stated it was ready to implement the agreement immediately. The United Nations has called for increased aid to Ukraine during a Security Council meeting. Council members welcome separate agreements struck by the United States and both Ukraine and Russia to cause attacks in the Black Sea and on energy infrastructure. However, comments from Moscow and Kyiv made it clear that significant differences remain. Russia's deputy UN ambassador, Dmitry Polyansky, stressed that the initiative would only resume once a series of measures are implemented.